All right, it's already Thursday and I'm feeling, I don't know if it's just me, this week has really rushed by very fast. Yani tushafika ile siku ya kuongeza bei ya mafuta. Today is 14th of March 2024. Good morning. This is Morning Cafe. My name is Freddie Ndimuli. How hot is the coffee where you are?
Oh yes, I'm used to Stanley Nyeringiti. It is that one day of the week that we kept fit. Tayari naanza kusikia mwili
inachangamka.
Oh yes. It was raining in the morning. I don't know, in case you're going to be waking up in the morning right now, you're leaving the house, unashanga mbona hapa kwangu nje kuna kaa hivi, kuna maji. It has been raining and we'll be taking a look at the weather just to see how things are looking like. But first, to the headlines.
Yes, new plan to tax bread and milk, 16% VAT. Oh, wow, that's a Daily Nation. On the Standard, why Jowie got a death sentence. Boundary review. Oh, finally they come to my discussion. Why you would get new MP come 2027. This is a big discussion on the Star.
Oh, yes. People Daily.
Why this man shall suffer death. Kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo ni kifo kwa kifo. Habari kamili pale.
Mwanaume huyo.
Matters Business, small farms given window to share big state tenders. Those are the local dailies. What do you have there, Stanley?
On the Inters, pressure mounts on Parliament over graft. Matters Daily Monitor, the Parliament is still on Matters graft. Still on in Uganda, hair relaxers linked to brain cancer.
Interesting.
Oh yes, that's in Uganda. Let's cross over to Tanzania. Samia acharuka. Wajua maana ya kucharuka?
Every day you learn. That's a new word I've learned.
Yes.
Acharuka. Samia acharuka.
I heard. And we show you government has more cash from minority shareholdings. That is on the Citizen. I was speaking about the weather. Let's take a look at the weather. And today I'm going all the way in Rongai. We call it diaspora. And see how things are looking like. It's 18 degrees Celsius there. But they say feels like 18. Maximum temperatures as of 27. Now, interestingly, at around 4 p.m., it is expected some light showers, some light showers in that particular area, as 40% precipitate, and as low as 18 degrees Celsius as of today. The traffic, I'll also take a look at the roads in this particular area. This is Ongata Rongai, and as you can see right now, 5 minutes past 6 a.m., the roads are looking quite clear. A few, the whole yellow patches, some slow traffic on that road, but promises to ease off even as you get into the CBD, as you can see. So even as you get into CBD, the whole River Safari Walk promises to get as clear as possible. Oh yes, let's get into now the diary and tell you what is expected as of today. And even in our news diary, getting to understand that particular doctor strike by KMPDU, which has actually been suspended by the court, but we'll be telling you about that. But first off, President William Ruto is expected to visit Kericho County today to commission the Belgut TTI Digital Hub, among other projects. We'll be following up on that to see how that will be in his itinerary. On the next page, what I was talking about earlier, the KMPDU strike, which is expected today. They're calling it a peaceful demonstration, faulting the government for failing to address issues pertaining promotion of doctors. And the demo will see doctors march from KNH to key government entities, including Ministry of Health, Treasury, Council of Governors, as well as Parliament. But then a whole twist to this, employment court suspended this strike. And so in case this strike is actually going to happen, it is going to be an illegal one. So according to the employment court, they are urging cabinet secretaries of health as well as labor to sit down with the union so that they can actually talk. And as Fred was alluding to earlier, it is that one day of the week or the month that we get to see how the fuel prices are Actually, even before the fuel prices. You remember last month at time like now? Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. It's a day you just want to forget. I'm glad we're actually in March, moving towards April. Easter is a much better holiday.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You're hating that day of the month.
Well, I was not hating it. I was just dreading it. I'm glad it's past.
The 14th of February. Anyway, so the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, will be reviewing the fuel prices for petrol, diesel, and kerosene. So last month, EPRA had reduced the fuel prices by 1 shillings. So they saw super petrol, diesel, and kerosene retail at 206, 195, as well as 192 respectively here in Nairobi. Let's go to the Senate now on the next page. And Kisii Deputy Governor Robert Monda will today have a chance to defend himself against 4 charges leveled against him by the Kisii County Assembly. So according to Senate Speaker Amason Kingi, the House has altered its morning and afternoon sittings for Wednesday and today to investigate the proposed removal from office by the impeachment of Monda. On the next page, matters health now. And today is World Kidney Day, by the way. So the theme for this year, this year's campaign is Kidney Health for All. So the theme focuses on the increasing burden of chronic kidney disease and achieving optimal kidney care to overcome these challenges at different levels. That is just a nutshell of the news diary for you. What to expect in your subsequent bulletins right here at TV 47. Right now, though, let's get into Today in History. And now, Today in History, we begin focus on 2013 on a day like today. So Jorge Bergoglio of Argentina was elected Pope, choosing the name Francis, but we commonly know him as Pope Francis. He was the first pontiff from the Americas and the first from outside Europe in more than a millennium. And that is Today in History for you. Right, let's get into the papers now.
All right, today we kick off with the Daily Nation, because I think it has made a departure from most of the other dailies locally. On the Daily Nation this morning, the big headline: new plan to tax bread and milk. Proposal risks inflicting a bigger burden on poor families, says consumer lobbying. This is a 16% VAT. The cost of breakfast for millions of Kenyans households that consume bread and tea as their first meal of the day is set to rise in the next 3 months if new tax measures proposed by the Treasury sail through Parliament. Treasury Cabinet Secretary Professor Njuguna Ndung'u wants 16% VAT imposed on the 2 products he says are mostly consumed by affluent Kenyans. Really? Bread and milk?
No.
And stories on page 7.
If you're adding sausages and other...
Yes, if you start talking about bacon and ham and other things, probably. But maybe. Anyway, page 7, that's where the story is. But the more concerning issue, and we've been discussing this, is whatever the government says is as good as done. Oh, yeah. No one will oppose it. It will happen. 16% VAT on milk and bread, expected in the next 3 months.
So technically, if a loaf of bread, the medium size is about 60 bob,
it will go up by about 10 shillings or so. So yes.
So about 70 others retailing at 80 shillings.
Yes.
Wow.
That will be the new price of bread.
Maybe milk, the packets would be around also 70 shillings, 80 shillings.
Thereabout. All right. Well, the other story given prominence on the front page of the Daily Nation is what is featuring on the other dailies, and that is the sentencing of Jowie Irungu, and the title here is How Jowie Went Down. It's been extensively covered on pages 10 and 11, and it revives the discussion about the death penalty and whether or not it should still be applicable in the Kenyan situation. That is a big discussion, and we'll be looking at that later on. The other story given a some space on the front page, battle to save Raila AU bid. And you realize nowadays when you talk about Raila, it's a much calmer story, or saving his bid for the AU.
Oh, yes.
Is he going to the AU or not? Well, at least he makes it to the front page today. It's been a while I haven't seen his face on the front pages. They say the African Union Executive Council will meet tomorrow in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, for a make-or-break meeting where Raila's candidacy for chairperson of the AU Commission will be decided.
And actually, if you juxtaposition this with last year, if you take last year's papers around a time,
it was always Raila, Ruto, Raila.
And actually, it was screaming Maandamano and prepping for Maandamano, because you remember the 20th March Maandamano and demos.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So the nation had kind of Maandamanos. 1 year later, this is
a lot has changed. Yes.
Oh, yes,
a lot has changed. The other story given prominence on the front page is the media players fighting state ads order. The Kenya Media Sector Working Group says PS's directive is a threat to press freedom. This is a story on page 2, and it talks about journalists set to sue state for awarding TV, radio ads to the state broadcaster. Let's flip the paper and go to the back page. Kenyans between a rock and a hard place as doctors strike. Union says doctors have been facing systemic problems for years, ranging from inadequate staffing, poor working conditions, and salaries. And today, they're downing their tools countrywide. They've actually done so as at midnight. So yes, the strike right now is already 6 hours and 13 minutes old. And yes, that is the other big story today. That's a Daily Nation for you this morning.
Or let's cross over to the Standard, and they say why Jowie got death sentence. Justice served. Standing in the dock and staring blankly at the judge, as the judge delivered her verdict, a crestfallen Joseph Irungu, alias Jowie, bent and clenched his arms when he was condemned to hang. The pain was, however, nowhere near that suffered by Monica Kimani. And they give reasons behind a penalty. And they also say 1987, year when coup plotter Hezekiah Chuka was hanged, while the capital offender has faced the hangman ever since. So among the reasons, unrepentant, not ready to reform, reconciliation question, murder must fall, as well as a split personality. He say he has a dual identity that is referred to as a dangerous person. There's also a quote there by Justice Grace Nzioka, who says, and I quote, "Is this convict person eligible for non-custodial sentence?" My answer was in the negative, for the simple reason that whoever is to be given an opportunity for rehabilitation must first and foremost himself acknowledge commission of the offense and the need to reform, end of quote. At the bottom, about 3 highlights. First off, matter sex offenses, views split on penalties, and they ask, should courts be given a leeway to deal with those convicted of sexual abuse? The Supreme Court to decide. More is on page 2. And they say the Supreme Court was treated to split opinions on how to deal with sex offenders. And the few people, arguing according to Igonga, Gishuki, as well as the Amikai Kurai. From that matters media, state assault, world is told to stand with Kenyan media. The Ruto's administration has come under heavy condemnation of its systematic attack on independent media. So some 20 lobby groups warned in Nairobi yesterday that the state front, led by broadcasting PS Edward Kisiangani, had starved free media of the traditional revenue streams after withdrawal of government advertising from independent print and broadcast media, which was instead diverted to one newspaper and the state broadcaster KBC. A final highlight on the front page of this paper, doctors begin strike after state talks fail. As Fred was earlier alluding to, it's now 6 hours and 16 minutes into that strike. Onto the back page. I wish I had not flipped on the back page. We can skip the back page.
No, let's focus on the back page a bit. It ended 1-1 aggregate, but then again went on to penalties.
We've been talking about this since Monday.
Read the headline.
No, on Monday was a different thing.
Slightly,
but
just
anyway.
read the headline.
This.
3, 2, 1, go.
It's even hard to. Anyway. This feels like real heaven. It's where Arsenal want to be.
Oh, yes.
I'd rather focus on the Arsenal fans picture there.
Well, 14 years later, the Gunners end their 14-year wait to reach Champions League quarterfinals. Yes, it does feel like heaven.
Oh, yes. The last time Arsenal qualified for the Champions League quarterfinals was back in 2010.
Were you born then?
I decided that this entire week I'm going to take all the banter, so ni sawa sawa tu. According to Michael Arteta, Fred's manager, it has been 14 years, which is a long time for a club like Arsenal, and it shows how difficult it was. Hopefully, you'll remain there. Msiseme after 2024, then 10 years later.
We're just dealing with the headlines as they come today.
Okay.
Don't talk about the future. It's today. It feels
today.
like heaven.
Okay.
All right. Tuangazie gazeti la Taifa Leo. Kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo ni kifo kwa kifo. Habari kuu pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele, mahakama yaamua mwanaume aliyemuua mfanyabiashara Monica Kimani naye auawe. Joseph Kuria Irungu almaarufu Jowie, ambaye alipatikana na hatia ya kumuua kinyama mfanyabiashara Monica Nyawera Kimani mnamo Septemba 19 mwaka wa 2018, amehukumiwa kunyongwa na mahakama kuu. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili, na kuna picha yake pale akiwa kotini jana. Bei ya mkate, maziwa kupanda pia imepewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Masuala zaidi, darubini NSSF kuhusu kabila inamulikwa kwa kuajiri wafanyakazi kutoka baadhi ya makabila makubwa tu nchini. Masuala ya ukulima, kilimo, wadai mbolea ya bei nafuu. Na kule Uganda, koti yakataa ombi la kundi la mashoga. Watetezi wa haki za mashoga walitaka wasajiliwe licha ya kuwa haramu Uganda. Habari zingine, vidokezo zaidi kwenye ukurasa wa mbele pale juu wa Taifa Leo. Vita vya msemaji wa Mlembe vya chacha, mdahalo katika eneo la magharibi kuhusu msemaji wa eneo hilo wapamba moto. Habari yenyewe kwenye ukurasa wa 3. Na pale Arsenal, miamba wa Arsenal FC. Arsenal FC yajiongezea matumaini, yatinga hatua ya 8 bora baada ya kupepeta FC Porto ya Ureno. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 20 wa gazeti hili la Taifa Leo. Nunua gazeti la Taifa Leo ujisomee zaidi masuala.
Ni shilingi tu 30 kwa mtazamaji na msikilizaji. Shilingi tu 30. Ukiwa pale Tanzania, shilingi zako 500. Na pale Rwanda 300. Tuangazie gazeti la People Daily sasa. And this gentleman staring blankly wearing a mask, Joseph Irungu alias Jowie, at the Milimani Low Courts yesterday, where Justice Chris Nzioka sentenced him to death after he was found guilty of the murder of businesswoman Monica Kimani in 2018. That is the main story. And they say, why this man shall suffer death. And just below that is a quote by Justice Nzioka. The evidence does not lead to the conclusion that the death was accidental. It was planned, intended, and it was executed. In a murder, one person's life ends, but countless lives are impacted. That is the Jowie verdict. On the top scroll are the highlights that have been making news, this entire week. Pain has made dicks down tools. And, picture there. Deputy Secretary General of KMPDU Dennis Miskela on the left, as well as Secretary General Davjia Teller, who's seated there. On the right, top scroll, witness, I sold my saloon to bribe Deputy Governor. This is a picture there. Kisii Deputy Governor Robert Monda, who will actually be today defending himself. Yesterday it was the turn for the CAs of the County Assembly of Kisii. Today is his turn at the Senate. And the Speaker of the Senate, Amason King, said, we're holding everything so that we finish up on this thing. So it's going to be interesting. The last time we saw something as close to this was the Meru events. So yes, so this really alters how Kisii is going to be looking like. At the very top scroll in red, Parliament lays red carpet for Ruto's chief administrative secretaries by changing law. This is on page 6. And that is the People Daily for you. Let's go to the next paper.
That's a Business Daily. Let's talk matters business. Small farms given window to share big state tenders. Chinese farms have outmuscled local contractors, and regulations to deal with winner takes it all scenario. Now, they say that small Kenyan contractors have been handed an opportunity to fight for big ticket state projects that are under the tight grip of moneyed Chinese counterparts after the Treasury published guidelines on how a single tender will be split among several suppliers. Well and good. The only caution or rather concern by Kenyans is the quality of work that local contractors could do. Can they match what the Chinese can do? The other story given prominence there is what is headlining on the front page of the Daily Nation. Treasury mulls VAT on bread, milk in fresh revenue push. And they talk about the proposal to impose a 16% VAT, a value-added tax on bread and milk, to boost revenues and what this will mean for middle-class households. Other highlights on the front page of the Business Daily: farmers face new levy on harvests traded on exchange platform. And it seems like we're just talking about new levies, new taxes every single day. Farmers are expected to part with the new 0.25% levy on gross value of their harvests traded on the Kenya National Multi-Commodities Exchange, that's a COMEX, whose kickoff has been postponed. The other highlight: media mulls legal action of a KBC adverts order. The media practitioners have threatened to move to court if the government fails to rescind its recent directive ordering ministries and various public institutions to exclusively air their TV and radio adverts through state-owned Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. And the last highlight: bank share prices gain as investors eye dividends. That's the Business Daily today.
On the Business Daily, to a conversation that we've been having on the state of the nation, the boundary review. They say why you won't get a new MP. So delimitation, they say exercise is stalled due to the dysfunctional electoral commission. And they say so the parliament is considering postponing the process until after the 2027 election. More on pages 4 and 5. But on the bottom, now the Star is the only paper that has actually had a photo of Grace Nzioka's, Jowie's mother, Anastasia Irungu, and the father, Julius Irungu, in the courtroom. Other papers just focusing on Jowie Irungu and just juxtapositioning for both of the families. And they say Monica's family wish fulfilled as Jowie sentenced to death. More highlights on the bottom. Woman troubled by wounds for 12 years appeals for help. And matters Kisii. They say a sold business to raise funds, witness in Monda hearing. This was also in the People Daily. So a son of a family whose father allegedly bribed Kisii Deputy Governor Robert Monda Kazis 800,000 cash shillings to secure him a job, broke down as he narrated how he sold his family business to raise the funds. The Kisii County Assembly exposed how the besieged Deputy Governor persuaded and received the bribe from the family of one Joseph Misati. On the Voice's opinion, Wycliffe Muga says a tale of two economic sectors, and that is one more highlight. By next week, over 42,000 cops set for mass transfers. And picture there, Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki. And that is the Star for you this morning.
All right, as we cross over to take a look at the cartoons, there's a headline on page 10 of the Standard that has just caught my attention. And it's about the Mumias East MP, Peter Salasia. Salasia skips court case and says he's on paternity leave. So simply because he's on paternity leave, he cannot go to court. Only in Kenya. And let's go to the cartoon on page 16 of the Standard, and it makes reference to some statements attributed to former Health Cabinet Secretary, that's Mutahi Kagwe. In 2020, at the height of the COVID pandemic, he says, if we continue to behave normally, this disease will treat us abnormally. Do you remember that quote?
I remember it.
Yes. So just the other day, I think over the weekend, he was attending a football tournament. So he's seen there, pictured there, or rather caricatured there with a ball of football on on his feet. And he says, if we continue to believe hustlers, this government will tax us unrealistically. So another quote attributed to the former CS for Health. On the Daily Nation, the cartoon is on page 15. Okay, more football there. But this time it's real football, a football pitch, and the number of football there. They're talking about the third term. And the picture there, or rather caricature there, of someone looks closely like the FKF president, Nick Mwendwa. Elections are coming up. The FKF elections are coming up, and what exactly will happen? He's holding a ball on one hand, on the other hand, he has a tennis racket. I don't know exactly what that means. So he's playing tennis with football. That's Daily Nation.
On the Star, that is page 3, they have a gentleman who has a very long tongue, and it seems to be encompassing a gentleman wearing some gloves and red gloves, and just behind, rather in front of him, is a bottle of, it's probably whiskey, and it's been branded alcoholism. It looks quite familiar to... I haven't said it.
You're giving me that look.
To some of the viewers who know that bottle. And on the truck, there's a gentleman holding that box written AU chairmanship. Oh, yes. And this reminds me, so the gentleman with the long tongue is probably tweeting or something. And this gentleman caught the eyes of Kenyans when he said, one term.
I think this is a person who said, this is a caricature of the minister or the cabinet secretary for public service. And the statements attributed to him recently made statements that appear to contradict what his boss, the deputy president, said in matters to do with alcoholism.
Yes, true.
And he's also made comments with regard to the Raila Odinga's bid for the AU chairman's position. And I think, yeah, this cartoon is just questioning the kind of statements attributed to Moses Kuria on these matters.
All right. On page 10 of People Daily, matters housing levy, and there's a common Mwananchi tied to a house there, written housing levy, and he says, set me free. And this has to do with, even on the Daily Nation, remember yesterday, saying the Senate had, even the Parliament had thrown Kenyans under the bus. Oh yes.
The Senate unanimously voted to pass the affordable housing bill without any amendments.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And that is where the common Mwananchi has been left off.
We feel cornered. The common Mwananchi does feel cornered. He has no choice. He has no defender. No one is speaking for him. Everything the government says, everything the government throws his way, he has to take it. So he's saying, please set me free.
Oh, yes.
Well, those are the cartoons this morning. I will be discussing some of these topics on the State of the Nation. Coming up today, we'll be having Jeremiah Kioni, the Secretary General of the Jubilee Party, and Beatrice Alachi, MP Dagoretti North. Later on,
we discuss matters family inheritance, just getting into understanding, matters law, and what really means after you divorce someone. Actually, don't even divorce. After you separate, before officially and legally divorcing, what happens in between there? Oh yes, matters bigamy, all that. We'll be discussing all that. And then later on, at the very tail end of the show, we'll get into matters fitness. Stick around for that. Welcome back. This is Morning Café. Australia Stanley Yerongeta. Time now to take a look at the news stories. And Joseph Irungu alias Jowie, who was last month found guilty of the murder of Monica Kimani on the night of 19th of September 2018, has been handed the death sentence. Justice Grace Nzioka ruled that the prosecution had adduced adequate evidence and proved beyond reasonable doubt that Jowie indeed killed Monica. Kisewa Emory with details on this.
Finally, a conclusion made. 6 years after the brutal murder of Monica Kimani, Joseph Irungu, alias Jowie, has been sentenced to death after he was found guilty of the crime.
That the first accused person before this court being Joseph Kuria Irungu alias Jowie, shall suffer death as provided for the offense of murder.
Delivering the verdict, High Court Judge Grace Nzioka ruled that the horrific murder of Monica Kimani was intentional. The Lady Justice also highlighted submissions from both parties and even investigators, some of which praised Jowie's character, but some which called into question his personality.
The investigating officer, Mr. Maxwell Otieno, is indicated in the report as having described the accused person as an extremely dangerous person, violent in nature, as demonstrated by the fact that he was involved in an assault case with one Rogers at Club 1824 when he was out on bond in this matter.
The judge focused on the effects the case had on the family of Monica Kimani, who was the sole breadwinner for her family. The ruling caused different reactions from both families, with the family of Monica Kimani expressing joy after the judgment.
Wameshukuru sana. We are very, very grateful that justice has been done.
Monica's brother, however, lamented that it would still be hard to move on without his sister.
Yes, we are satisfied. Now what we are looking forward to is how to move on with everything and maybe find closure. Yeah.
Jowie's mother, however, has insisted on her son's innocence.
Me, I believe my son is innocent. Na hajafanya kazi yoyote, kosa yoyote, hajaua. Kuna kitu ninaamini, kuna a God of a second chance. Na atamtoa. Na ndio unaona niko na nguvu sababu Mungu mwenye ninaamini ndiye atamtoa. He is like Joseph. Joseph alidhulumiwa hivi na Mungu baadaye alimtoa.
Now with Jowie's sentencing, after being in and out of the courts for more than 6 years, the family of Monica Kimani can finally have some closure in this case. Kisewa Emory reporting for TV47 at Milimani Law Courts, Nairobi.
Still in the corridors of justice, High Court Judge Grace Nzioka Wednesday sealed Joseph Jowie Irungu's fate by handing him the death sentence over the murder of businesswoman Monica Kimani in 2018. So the ruling giving new jurisprudence to the Francis Amurua Tetu and Wilson Mwangi appeal against the state over the death penalty. Mwege William takes a dive into the Nzioka ruling that cited the 2017 Supreme Court ruling that declared mandatory death sentence unconstitutional as provided for under Section 204 of the Penal Code, but not affecting the validity of the death sentence and Article 28 Cap 3 or the Article 26 Cap 3 of the Constitution. So just what guided Justice Nzioka?
In the sentencing to death of Joseph Irungu at the Milimani Law Courts Wednesday by High Court Judge Grace Nzioka, the prosecution side cited the Francis Murwatetu case of 2015, where it stated that despite the decision in the case of Murwatetu, the death sentence is not unconstitutional. Nzioka saying that the matter which was before the Supreme Court only declared that the mandatory nature of death sentence is unconstitutional and not the sentence itself.
Sentence provided for the offense of murder, which sentence is stipulated under Section 204, which says that a person convicted of the offense of murder shall suffer death.
The ruling by Nzioka has been supported by Advocate Seth Ojenda, a senior law lecturer at Mount Kenya University School of Law.
But again, in the sentencing policy, the judge has really given an insight, very intelligent insight.
In the Moroatetu Mwangi case, which Justice Nzioka numerously cited during the sentencing of Irongo, 2 murder suspects had been handed the death sentence for the murder of business person Lawrence Githinji Magondu, and the wanted mandatory death sentence as set out in the Section 204 of the Penal Code, removed by the Kenya law, arguing that it was unconstitutional. The two also wanted indeterminate life sentence be declared unconstitutional.
Despite the decision in the case of Moroatetu, the only thing that case did was to declare, and I will put it clearly, that the mandatory, I will repeat, the mandatory nature of the death sentence is unconstitutional.
Irungu was granted 14 days to appeal the sentencing. The ruling further raises questions into the death sentence in the country, even as Section 204 of the Penal Code is seen by law experts to be inconsistent with Article 26(3) of the Constitution, which states that a person shall not be deprived of life intentionally, except to the extent authorized by this Constitution or other written law. The Supreme Court later guided the Office of the Attorney General on the interpretation.
And even the Moroatetu case itself, it was left that in the guidelines itself that yes, it is not outlawed per se, but now the court will be guided discretionally by the policy while meting out sentences.
The Grace Nzioka ruling now gives a new shred of jurisprudence to the Supreme Court ruling to the Moroatetu appeal, despite the same court directing the Speakers of the National Assembly and the Senate, the Reforms Commission, the Attorney General, and the Kenya law to attend with a signal of utmost urgency for any necessary amendments, formulation, and enactment of statute law to give effect to their judgment on the mandatory nature of the death sentence and the parameters of what ought to constitute life imprisonment, but that is yet to happen. Mwigi William, TV 47.
Thank you, Mwigi, for that. Now, Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition has ordered for the resignation of Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Akumicha, citing delay in responding to the doctors' demands. This is according to National Assembly Minority Leader Opiyo Ndai, who says that if the CS cannot liaise with the Treasury to release funds for the healthcare workers on time, then he can as well resign, or rather, she can as well resign. The Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union, KMPDU, has since issued a strike notice effective midnight, saying the government shows lack of commitment to resolving the issues of concern.
In the next few hours, Kenyans across the country in need of important health care will suffer a major blow following the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union declaration to down their tools effective midnight.
Clock ticks midnight. Past 1 minute. I encourage all of you to join the liberation movement in a way that only you have shown us in the past the best way you can do it. Where callous hands holds another callous hands. As we do it, let us sing to the thunderous roar of a freedom song.
According to KMPDU Secretary General Davji Atela, the union's members have no option but to take the no-return route after 2 meetings of trying to solve the puzzle regarding their demands failed to come up with anything substantive, especially for those that did not require any funding.
We are persuaded to believe that our government is just too unwilling. 7 years later, what of the beautiful infrastructure that we've seen come up? What of the well-known white elephants that have sunk taxpayers' money in the black holes of corruption?
Among the demands that the union wants addressed includes salary increment, promotions, medical insurance cover, postgraduate fee payment, study leave, and justice to the Secretary General of Union, Dr. Davji Atela, who was shot during a peaceful protest held on February 29 this year. At the same time, a section of Azimio la Umoja leaders led by the National Assembly's Minority Leader Opiyo Ndai has ordered for the resignation of Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Akumicha, citing delay in responding to the doctor's demands.
If the Health Cabinet Secretary is not able to make the National Treasury release funds for a critical ministry like hers, then she has no option but to quit, really.
The Health Cabinet Secretary had earlier dismissed KMPDU's demands as being unrealistic, saying the ministry hands were tied regarding to the posting of medical interns. Anastasia Mkabi, TV 47.
Right, so Parliament is today expected to debate and approve amendments to the National Government Coordination Act 2013 to legalize the return of President William Ruto's chief administrative cabinet secretaries. So in the new proposals approved by the National Assembly's Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, the number of cases that has now been capped at 22, the number of CSs capped at 22 to tame a bloated public wage bill. As Apollo Kumar reports, the CSs might soon start answering questions in the Parliament.
After 8 months in the cold, President William Ruto's chief administrative secretaries are set to make a comeback if Parliament approves a raft of amendments to the National Government Coordination Act of 2013 on Thursday, legalizing their return after they were declared unconstitutional by the court. The National Assembly's Justice and Legal Affairs Committee recommends the CSs as necessary, while recommending the number be capped to 22 to avoid a bloated public wage bill.
The amendment will pave way for setting certain minimum requirements that will guide the president in appointing a CAS. And you have seen the report, and they have said, for example, a CAS must have a minimum of a bachelor's degree.
The approval of the amendments means President William Ruto will have to reduce his initial appointees of 50 CSs, who will also be required to have a degree and experience of having served in government. In case they are approved, the CSs will represent their respective cabinet secretaries in Parliament to field questions, according to one of the amendments.
In the amendment, we will ensure that it is their role to appear before Parliament, and in particular committees of Parliament, to explain policy directives of a certain ministry or a certain department.
The JLAC report approving the return of the CSs was however opposed by Rarieda MP Otiende Amolo, who is a member of the JLAC committee, arguing that their duties were a duplication of cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries. Apul Kamau, TV47.
President William Ruto has told the United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken that Kenya will take a leadership of the UN Security Support Mission in Haiti in order to restore peace and security after the formation of the Presidential Council in Haiti. As Paul Kirobi reports, this comes 2 days after the resignation of the Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry, the head of the Caribbean nation.
1 day after Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry tendered his resignation as the head of the Caribbean nation, President William Ruto had a conversation with the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on issues pertaining security in Haiti. The head of state, in a snippet conversation via phone call, alluded that shortly after the formation of a new presidential council, whose main objective will be to manage the situation in Haiti, Kenya will be taking up the leadership of the UN Security Support Mission in Haiti to restore peace and security. Henry's resignation comes as regional leaders met earlier on Monday in nearby Jamaica to discuss the framework for a political transition, which the U.S. urged last week to be expedited while gangs called for Henry to step down. Earlier on, regional officials were engaged in talks involving members of Haiti's political parties, private sector, civil society, and religious groups aimed at establishing the transitional council that would pave the way to the first election since 2016. With allegations that many Haitians consider Henry as corrupt, he had repeatedly postponed elections, saying security must first be restored. The new council has been mandated to swiftly appoint an interim prime minister, and anyone who intends to run in Haiti's next elections will not be able to participate. Paul Kirobi, TV47.
Right, back to Kenya. The cabinet has endorsed measures that the government has taken in the fight against illegal brews and narcotic drugs. The measures announced by the Interior Ministry include a 21-day suspension of all the 52 licenses and permits issued to manufacturers and distillers of second-generation alcohol, revocation of all bar licenses issued by counties against the law, and an audit of conflict of interest within the ranks of enforcement agencies. So the cabinet resolved that any public officials who resist these measures against the fight against illegal brews and drugs will be violating Chapter 6 of the Constitution and the laws of conflict of interest.
And when you have the opportunity, all of us should be available. Let me also request you, as members of this, to get involved in and And so, welcome the rest of us.
Now, the Shakahola massacre case hearing was on Wednesday disrupted after the main suspect, Paul Mackenzie, refused to appear before Magistrate Leah Juma at the Shanzu Law Courts in Mombasa, where terror-linked charges have been filed against him and 94 other core suspects. The court has ordered that Mackenzie be carried through a mental assessment test before the case is set to be heard again on the 26th of March.
Controversial preacher Paul Mackenzie had declined to appear before court on Wednesday, where his complaints were to be heard and addressed. The cult leader, who allegedly got involved in the deaths of hundreds of his church followers, decried discrimination during custody at the prison, claiming that he has recently been barred from interacting with his counterparts or even getting closer to them. His lawyer, Wycliffe Makasembo, had to intervene when Mackenzie finally accepted to appear before Magistrate Leah Juma at the Shanzu Law Courts in Mombasa. While addressing Mackenzie's allegations, the prosecution had claimed that Mackenzie's separation from his co-accused is due to fears of radicalization that has recently been witnessed, especially when the suspects went on a hunger strike, therefore disrupting the court proceedings. The request by the 95 suspects to the court calling for their release on bail terms was, however, rejected, with the judge issuing further orders, including their extended custodial period. In addition, Paul Mackenzie is to undergo a mental health assessment test before the case is mentioned once again on 26th of March 2024. Paul Munio, TV 47, Mombasa.
And organizations under the Kenya Media Sector Working Group now say that they are concerned about the undermining of media freedom in the country. Speaking in Nairobi, the stakeholders have expressed their worry on the infringement of freedom to access information by citizens. They have added that the repression of the media will only infringe on the rights of journalists in the country. They have further called upon media stakeholders, both within and without, or rather outside the country, to ensure the rights of journalists and the media as a whole are upheld, adding that journalists should not be discouraged but rather continue with their work.
Mbona hakuna shirika lingine ambalo limewekwa chini ya Bill of Rights? Ni kwa sababu kila Mkenya ana haki ya kupata habari wakati wowote, na habari hizo atazipata kupitia vyombo vya habari. Hivyo huwezi kubagua vyombo vya habari na kwenda kinyume na katiba na masharti ambayo yamewekwa kwenye mikataba ambayo Kenya imetia saini bila mashauriano na bila hata kuyashirikisha mashirika mengine. Vyombo vya habari ni haki ya kimsingi ambayo imewekwa kwenye katiba, ambayo ndio sheria kubwa humu nchini inayostahili kuheshimiwa, kwamba ni lazima watii uhuru wa vyombo vya habari na watii haki ya Wakenya ya kupata habari bila kubaguliwa.
We are seeing a trend that if we don't speak up, we are likely to have more problems in Kenya as far as media freedom is concerned. You can remember that last year we didn't perform well on the World Press Freedom Ranking as a result of different matters that came up in Kenya. And that is why the Kenya Media Sector Working Group found it necessary to sit and draft a comprehensive statement looking at different policy interventions and what they mean. Because sometimes you wonder what goes in the minds of people who come up with these policies without looking at what are the implications of these policies.
Well, that wraps up the whole news coverage that we had for you this morning. More context of this story is coming up later in the State of the Nation. Member of Parliament, Dagoretti North, Beatrice Elachi, is right here with us. Prepped, reading the papers, and just knowing what is expected, as Fred Ndimuli will be right here with us later on. We'll take a short break. Don't go too far. Karibu sana.
All right, welcome back. This is the Morning Cafe. This is a State of the Nation. My name is Fred Indemuli, and we're privileged to have in studio Beatrice Elachi, MP Dagoretti North. Good morning, karibu sana.
Morning.
Fine, thank you.
Good.
So it is a pleasure to have you in studio. Unfortunately, Jeremiah Kioni, Secretary General Jubilee, has sent his apologies. He won't be able to be joining us.
Okay.
But there's so much to talk about. And of course, the big headline on most of the dailies has to do with that death sentence yesterday for Jowie, Joseph Irungu, for the 2018 murder of businesswoman Monica Kimani. And we could start from there. Because yes, maybe it was expected, but it has revived the debate on whether or not the death penalty should be abolished. It's been more than 38 years now since the last executions were made through the death penalty. That has not happened. The question is whether or not we should still be having death sentences in our laws. And I'd want to pick your mind on this even as we start.
Well, you see, yes, with the new constitution, everything sort of changed. But then I remember the Chief Justice also coming out and saying, now they have removed completely the issue of the death penalty. And so for me, there are two ways I'll look at it. One, you can pronounce it for purposes of judgment, yes. I know Jowie is going to appeal, but at the same time, it tells you that you can reach a point and the death sentence will be just like you being life sentenced. So you'll be for your whole years until death finds you there. Yeah.
Because we've seen, yes,
so she might say a death sentence, but maybe she meant you're going to live in these cells for the many years to come until death finds you there.
But where does that leave Kenyans? Because it is a sentence that is not executable. We sentence someone to death, yet we cannot do it, and we still leave it in our laws. And we've seen successive presidents now being forced to commute later these sentences into life in prison. And we wonder, because even the Supreme Court has declared itself on this, they declared the mandatory death penalty for murder as unconstitutional. But that is a mandatory, meaning you can still sentence someone to death, but it does not. The
same way she did.
She did.
Yes.
So she's not necessarily wrong. But the question is,
she's not.
Why still have that provision in our laws, yet even it defies the Constitution, which guarantees the right to life? And that has been the argument for years on end.
You see, that's why I always say we have to look at our laws. We have refused to look at our laws based on also the main book that is always there. In the Bible, all these things are also there. So we always run away, but when you read the Bible is one book that is, it has a lot of peace, it has a lot of violence, it has a lot of, it talks of everything that we see in the normal world. It talks about Cain murdered. So what did God do? He indeed,
an eye for an eye.
Well, he didn't kill, but he told him, this is how you live your whole life. So for me, yes, we can remove it, but you have to bring in a sentence. Because also, when I look at all the femicides that have happened, and more importantly, I'm not just looking at Jowie. Jowie came recently. I'm looking at the former governor of Migori. It is very unfortunate.
But that case is still going on.
Well, even if it's still going on, it's wrong in Kenya. For us to drag that case to date, and then you want to come and now look at the family of Monica and where she is today. And to make it worse, it was 2 murders. So I'm wondering, this case, is it in 2 or is it one case put together?
Okay.
Because you have a baby that was murdered, and you have, yet our laws are very clear that you can't even abort. And so you can't even kill the one who is unborn, who is still in the womb of the mother.
Okay.
So all that
that's a case that's still before court.
It's a very interesting case. That's a case we're also waiting to see how it will go. And so I want to thank Grace for setting now the stage in terms of, let's see now how the rest will unfold and how these other judges are going to, even though I know each is independent, but I am just hoping it's a lesson. I don't say you do it for Jowie. I am saying the parents and Jowie himself will have to head to the Court of Appeal, and let's see how that case comes in. But it has to set a precedent so that people now start appreciating life of others, and that when you are very angry or you have anger that is about to kill, you think of something different. I mean, I look at Evans, who the other day we were just discussing, a young man who comes on social media and says, my wife, for the last 9 years, I've been telling her, and you know, everyone just takes it for granted as a joke, but nobody ever thought, does he have a mental problem? What is this young man trying to communicate? But in the end, look at what he does. He also takes his life, which I think those are some of the things we should be really very worried as a country.
It is a serious social problem, the rampant murders that are happening. But I want us to look at it from a legal perspective. The fact that we still have this provision in our law that is in defiance to our constitution that we gave ourselves. And I'm questioning whether or not Kenyans are being genuine with what they talk about. On one hand, we say there's a right to life, and we vote in a referendum to guarantee that.
in a Bill of Rights.
Yes, then on the other hand, in our laws, we still have the death sentence that you're still prescribing in court, but not executing it.
But let me ask
there seems to be a
also,
disjoint somewhere.
Yes, and it contradicts us. You know why? So when someone has murdered, you have killed, what happens to you? You want to say the Bill of Rights protects me, but you didn't remember. That's why we say that right has to protect each one of you.
There is a life sentence. There is a life sentence, which actually most people convicted for murder are still serving life sentences.
And that is what he needs to now go to the Court of Appeal and plead for. As he says, whether he did this or he didn't, the second thing, he has to be pleading in the Court of Appeal that this judgment is harsh and it is unconstitutional. And so I believe that is the route he's going to take.
But from a legislative perspective, because you are a legislator,
yes,
don't you think that it is time that Parliament actually sought a proper remedy for this inconsistency in the law? Because I look as far back as 2007 and 2015, Parliament itself voted against abolition of the death penalty.
Yes.
So that means that as far as the legislators are concerned, this should still be there, despite the fact that it is inconsistent with the Constitution. Why are we entertaining this inconsistency and confusion? Why should we even be debating whether or not the death penalty should be there?
First, it's not a confusion, because the moment the Constitution, and I think that's why the Chief Justice had to speak on it, even before now we've come to this judgment. And she said they have removed it. So we will have to see how it unfolds. But I agree with you. We need to go back to court, because they are the ones to interpret. And because it is the same Supreme Court that interprets the same Constitution, then we will have to go. And they have already done. So you see, that's why I'm saying each judge...
Why are you excusing Parliament? Because I think it is
because for us, we passed a Constitution, and in the Bill of Rights, it's very clear that you have a right of life. And when it's in the Bill of Rights, you can't touch it. That's why that is a chapter we always say, you want to do anything on it, you have to take it to a referendum.
But the legislation is back to you, because the penal code and adjusting any statutes and acts of Parliament, including the penal code and other things, it is down to the legislators. Are we saying that probably the legislators simply represent the general society, that probably the Kenyans appreciate and are still open to the death penalty? Is that what we are saying?
Well, if you go to Kenyans, they will give you very interesting comments on it, you know. But all I'm saying is that the Chapter 4 of the Bill of Rights is a very protected chapter. That is why we legislate on it, knowing very well you have to legislate something that will not discriminate on either, you know, either direct or indirect. So you have to always be very, very careful. And so if the Bill of Rights have given that right to every Kenyan, then it is up to the courts to cautiously and read it in a proper way.
Not Parliament.
I mean, we've already given them I don't know how Parliament, if we have to take now the issue of the abolition of the death penalty, then we have to create a whole act, and yet already it's explicit in the Constitution. So why are you creating an act? That is how you'll bring confusion. Because we can legislate, but I've always said you have to read the whole act now. And then, you know, they will come, I know the judges will bring in the penal code and all those things will come in. But at the same time, if anything is expressed clearly in the Bill of Rights, I mean...
So you do agree it's inconsistent with the Constitution?
Very inconsistent.
So whose job is it to remedy this inconsistency? If you ask me, I thought it's the job of the legislators to actually ensure that it is clear.
Well, now that we have, you see, now you go and you realize now this has happened. It's when that you go back on the drawing board and you realize, okay, you have to do an act of Parliament for now the judiciary to understand this. Yeah, but
because the judiciary only works with what they are given.
And they were given the Constitution, which is more supreme than any other act.
And the penal code that was approved by Parliament that prescribes the death penalty as well.
That penal code was of which year? Which year is the Constitution? What takes precedence? It's the new Constitution took over, and that's why all these other laws had to drop. Yeah.
Wow. Because it is said, and the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights has come out clearly for years on end, saying that the death penalty is inhumane, because anyone sentenced to death, they remain on death row without necessarily a date for their execution. They're not placed on any plan for rehabilitation. Simply, they're placed on life imprisonment without necessarily the societal support for those who are on life imprisonment. And they say that this is inhuman even to those who are sentenced to such. Well, it is a debate that will definitely continue. It features on all the main pages, on the Standard on the front page, why Jowie got the death sentence, and on the Daily Nation, how Jowie went down. And because I'm certain that the family has indicated that they will appeal this, that this debate will continue. On the front page of Taifa Leo...
They have to appeal, because Section 71 of the Constitution is very clear.
Yes.
So they have to appeal.
On the front page of the Taifa Leo, they say ni kifo kwa kifo, meaning this is what Kenyans have picked out, the fact that it is the death sentence. It is also on the front page of the People Daily. Why this man shall suffer death. It is that pronouncement of the death sentence that many people are concerned about. The other big story today is a doctor strike. As it is right now, the strike should be about 7 hours and 12 minutes old. The question has been, because it was to start at midnight.
Oh, okay.
Yes. They said a minute past midnight, the strike kicks off. We've seen previously how such strikes by doctors and nurses have really affected service provision in Kenya. And it's a matter of life and death. Many people have died. And many may question why the reluctance by government to actually attend to this. At a time when the big discussion is about adjusting and changing the service delivery, especially in that sector, moving from the NHIF to the SHIF, which is very resource intensive. As it is, the CS for Health has said, by this month, the deductions for SHIF begin. The fact of the matter is, she has also said that the rollout of the SHIF will only start after July, meaning the deductions are happening months in advance. When you're having that kind of discussion, collecting money is months in advance, and you're still not able to attend to such emergencies, what does it say about the overall approach to medical services in Kenya?
You see, first of all, it's very unfortunate because we have people who have clearly paid their whole year NHIF. Let's start from there. And so we need to ask ourselves, I would have wished, you know, it's a conversation that you need all your stakeholders together. It's a conversation where you cannot just, in Kenya today, it's so difficult for you to order and order because everyone goes to court for public participation. So why can't you do clearly public participation with the key stakeholders who are those who are going to administer the new insurance that you're bringing in. And I remember also questioning and asking the other day, our children in schools are not covered. yet you remember we had covered them with NHIF. So what happens? Because government never even said, oh, this is what we would wish to do. And parents, you must take your responsibility of covering your children, or you pay this and we match. Nobody ever spoke. We just cut it off, and you can see all the accidents we are having. Now let us come to now the stakeholders wanting to understand, yes, we are shifting. You are about to deduct the monies. What about, and you have not given even an audit report to say, and that's, I think that's where many are questioning. And I know CS is trying her best to see this thing works, yes. But there are a few things she must understand. That one, you must sit down and tell Kenyans so that they feel more safe, that your NHIF that you paid for the whole year, the monies we have taken and you have not been spending, because you know right now with that confusion already you have stopped, is gonna shift from your card of NHIF to your card of shift.
The fact of the matter is, when it comes to that, and I'll go back to a headline we had on the Business Daily earlier this week, and it talks about over 400 private hospitals already declining the NHIF card.
Yeah.
Due to non-payment of claims.
Yes.
By NHIF, meaning there's already a problem there. Even as we transition to SHIF,
yes.
This confusion, the transitioning, the failure to attend to the doctors who are on strike demanding that interns are employed, all this speaks to a lack of grasp on the health sector. Should this failure be blamed on the CS? Because she is in charge of all this. All this confusion is happening in her presence.
I would say, yes, the buck stops with her, but you can't blame her fully, because I think there's a team. The team of NHIF has to come and tell CS, we have people who have paid 1 billion shillings, 2 billion shillings of their monies. Right now they are not spending, we are going to move it to shift. And maybe Parliament and the Health Committee will help us to understand how much, as we move to the new, and before you start even deducting people, this new the fund that you want to start earlier, before July, you need to tell Kenyans, we are closing books, and it's not CS. It is now NHIF. We are closing books when we know very well we have 10 billion, 5 billion of Kenyans that have not been spent.
Are we having that conversation? Because
we are not.
If people are asking, okay, then who is going to have this conversation? NHIF, I'm sure, and the people there are concerned.
They are very happy.
They're actually transiting.
Yeah, because they are very happy. They know many things we did wrong. We can cover ourselves with this new fund, which is very unfortunate. And that is why sometimes you find Kenyans are willing, yes, to have good covers, to pay for others who can't afford this. But when they realize how the thing is, the transitions we normally do, and we just don't even take into account people have spent their money, and not just money. We have others who are on dialysis. We have others who are in hospital with chronic diseases. They still need a cover.
Back to Parliament, because you've mentioned that Parliament can come in. And the concern right now is...
This one, when Parliament I'm coming in, I'll be questioning even my own elderly women. I paid for them NHIF for 1 year.
Exactly.
Where am I going to get their money back?
Not questioning this. The feeling is that the general public has been left to suffer the consequences of whatever mismanagement, of whatever happens in this case, and no one is there to defend the public. And we'll come to this conversation, especially on the role of Parliament in defending the public on any matter. It would appear that we are in a situation where anything wrong happening to the public, anything imposed unfairly or otherwise on the public is not being questioned. There's no pushback. No one is talking about it. Things are just happening. We are almost on autopilot. Is that the case?
You see, autopilot in Kenya are many, I'll be very honest. But I'll say this, how I wish, it's my wish, that the stakeholders would have sat down, would have agreed that if I have an NHIF card that is valid and I'm using it to date, I just walk in July. When the fund starts, it has to start in July, and that's the best time you can also, with the new financial year. You see, you can't tell me you will deduct money from a financial year that is ending on people, and you start in a new financial year.
The requirement also is that everyone has to register for SHIF. The registration process is even yet to start.
That's what I'm saying, how I wish we started by ensuring you have a process, either a digital process that is just seamless, that I will come with my NHIF card, the same number, and I just key in. If you're giving me a new number, fine, with a new card, but you're taking the old NHIF as you give me, and you validate it and show me that when I walk to any hospital at that moment, I can still continue. But I know it won't be that way.
Yet Parliament is there, and Parliament's role,
Parliament's
role
is to oversight. I agree.
How come this conversation is not being had?
But the problem of now, you was telling me Parliament, and even me as Parliament, the executive is bringing and telling us, look, we are moving from here to here, and we are questioning. Oh, by the way, all these questions are there in Parliament. Every member of Parliament is asking the same question I'm asking, that we have already spent money. And you can imagine now if 290 constituencies have ensured the elderly were given an NHIF card, where are they going to go? And how do you come in again and start funding anew, yet this money has not even been used?
I'm still not ready to excuse Parliament on this, and I'll ask you this because you've served in the Senate.
Tell me how
you've served in the Senate.
Yes.
Was it the 11th?
The 11th
Parliament.
Yes.
And the conduct of the 11th Parliament in comparison to the 13th Parliament that you're now in, and as far as questioning, playing its oversight role and all these things, the feeling this time round, and Parliament, the 13th Parliament has been criticized of being the most ineffective in its oversight role. Do you agree in comparison to how when you served as a member of the 11th?
Well, now, you know, in the 11th Parliament, I was in Senate, so I don't know whether you're saying the National...
No, I'm talking about Parliament collectively, because this thing is shared across all houses.
Well, first of all, health is devolved, and how I wish the senators would have really pushed on this thing, because that's why you find me wondering...
You're excusing the National Assembly now.
I will excuse, because for them, they will look at the national policy, which is this now. But because it will be implemented in counties and health is 98% devolved, we have to work as a joint team. I don't want to excuse and say these ones are good. No, we are all in a mistake here because we have decided to let it work the way the executive will want it to work.
So you agree that the 13th Parliament has left it to the executive to do whatever it wills?
Not on all issues. Not on all issues. But on this one of health, we needed to have a clear stakeholders meeting where you can agree. And also, I haven't heard the voice of the governors, so I don't know whether for them it is okay or they also have the challenges we see. But I think the best, because it's a new insurance we want to bring in for our people, I'll call it that way. How I wish, before we get even to July, these few things every Kenyan is questioning, that we can agree to sit on the table and not sit for long, because I know somebody might think we want to sit, we want to derail. But also maybe the mistake we are seeing is that we don't have a good communicator from also the ministry who can come out and communicate to Kenyans and sensitize Kenyans properly. Just give Kenyans by step. This will happen. You have an NHIF card, it will be valid to this date, invalid at this time. When it becomes invalid, you are able to receive your new card and you will continue. So before even you bring the card, the first people who should be taken through the process are all the hospitals that will be having the new. So that if you're using a new system in terms of how you'll be keying in, they have it. So that if this, and don't tell me now, all my records that I've been using in NHIF, I cannot continue using the same. So those are some of the things Kenyans want to understand. When I go, will the doctor now tell me I have to start a new file? Will he be asking me those questions?
We have to register afresh for SHIF. You cannot continue as
doesn't matter. You register afresh because it's a new card. But at the same time, my details that have always been there. And I want to tell them, if you can't do that, just run to Namibia before you come back to us. Because they are, yes, this is where Anyang Nyong, when he was the Ministry of Health, That is where he went and looked at how...
Hence the question I was asking you, is it the leadership in the Ministry of Health? Because we've seen other leaders, other cabinet secretaries, who had a proper grasp on management of health matters. This time round, there seems to be a lot of confusion, and I'll take you back now to the doctor strike that has started off. And the CS has simply said that it is not my problem. Talk to Treasury, because whatever you're demanding in the employment of intern teachers is something that is unreasonable right now. We cannot fund it. Ask Treasury. When a CS gets to that point, this one will definitely result in the loss of life. Unfortunately, we've seen it from history. Hence the question.
Well, have you said it in a media language, or that is what the CS said?
Well, I could look for the quote itself. She said that it is not a problem right now. Treasury is the one to fund that.
Okay, this is what I will say. You know, I've always said we have God in heaven, and on earth, God gave man the power to try and save lives before they go to heaven. It's a very unique gift for, I hope doctors also understand. It's normally a unique gift that God gives you. It's not about your education or knowledge, no. If it was education, knowledge, all of us might be the same, but no. It's a gift, it's something that is put in you for you to be who you are today, a doctor, a nurse, and all. And I know they want to have a gain of their CBA plus their interns. If we are able, as a country, if we have been able to think about education, and you know we cut off a lot of money from the education sector, and even the health. How I wish we needed to have just put in just resources for the intern doctors to come in. Mm-hmm. For me, that one, I know I questioned all this.
Who should we blame? Who should we blame for this?
You see now, in the blame, it is a blame of so many people, even as we are in the blame. But some of us
Parliament, on this one, we've actually pushed you aside. There's very little help coming away from Parliament, and we'll be talking about that in a short while.
No, there's help coming because we question. You see, I would rather say what I will say, and then in the end, yes, but at least I have said this is not right, which I did, and many others did. They questioned, and I'm still saying we still have a window. We can still bring in the interns. We don't need... And have a bargain, a win-win. You see, you will bargain, fine, doctors, you want the interns, fine. Well, if we bring in the interns, then because we are also struggling and recovering from the economy and all the things government will say, allow us and give us a few years, or 1 year or 2 years, to come and now look at your CBA. Because we will have given you one of the demands that you want.
Okay. Do you agree that probably the focus has been on chasing the money and just getting more money and more money by whichever means, without necessarily a reciprocal or an equivalent delivery of services to Kenyans, especially on this matter? The SHIF, they're keen, and they've really pushed for the collection of contributions beginning this month, months ahead of the rollout of the new scheme.
You see, I'm going to find many, even people in government offices, who are going to have to go into a lot of strain, because even right now, those who are paid a salary, let me say a salary of 32,000 or even 50 going down, I know right now, and you had already made your agenda, you wanted, maybe you've taken a loan, you're on mortgage, they are straining. They are straining. And I know even if we are going into shift, it's not going to be just the amounts they have put. They have to look. I think, and that's why I said, why can't we first as a country? We've gone through the affordable, we have accepted, everyone is...
Have we?
No. I mean, whether you... Government is government. I always say, Sirikali ni Sirikali. Yes. So Sirikali did its way, and they went and got their way.
Yes.
So they are deducting, whether you say you haven't accepted, but the money is being deducted. And I saw in the budget, so far we have saved the 72 billion. I mean, in the budget policy statement. It was very clear. So it means Kenyans are contributing already. Now, having said that, how I wish, and it's something I'm really pleading with the government. Honestly, Kenyans are not saying they don't want to do it, by the way. Kenyans are just saying, even if you're bringing a new one, and you are able, they are saying as of the top we can pay. Fine. But those of the lower, I want to hear how we are going to help them, because you're just taking their whole, it's like they are working for government completely.
I'll draw your attention to the front page of the Daily Nation.
It's not even fair at all.
On the front page of the Daily Nation, they're talking about a new plan to tax bread and milk, 16% VAT. It is these same households.
Okay, why can't then, you know, there was in the last finance bill, I really pushed and I said, instead of us having all these taxes that we are imposing, then just give us VAT straight to all Kenyans once and remove all these other taxes. Because when you put VAT 16%, then you put all the other taxes you're putting. Then we put excess duty of import of 5%, I think, on spaghetti, which we know it's only our students survive on that, more students than anything else. I mean, it is, well, I don't want to speculate. I want to see first.
It is a proposal. It is a proposal in the budget policy statement. So meaning when the budget comes, these are the proposals that are coming, 16% VAT on milk and bread. But the question is...
I would really plead with government. Just do the way East African
Is that the
countries
only way we can do it? Plead with government? Is there any way of stopping them? Because now
how do you stop? Tell me. I go to the street and stop them, or what am I supposed to do?
Affordable housing bill passed without any amendments in both the National Assembly and the Senate, meaning that whatever the government says is as good as law. Parliament has no role, or Parliament is totally unable to stop anything.
We have a role.
It means chances
the minority will have their
99% of
they are saying they will have their way.
99% is that this will pass as is, simply because it is a proposal by Treasury.
Bread and
nothing
milk
will change.
No, bread and milk will remove. No, unless we are in a parliament that is absolute in another world. I mean, how can we allow 16%?
What you've shown us as parliament?
First of all, you remember bread, and nobody questioned. The factories decided one time, and they just reduced. What was 400 grams became I don't know what. So now you're putting 16% on which bread?
But this will be passed by Parliament.
No, this one, if it
we will
really
hold it to
passes.
Account.
And you hold me on account, because for this one, unless we are in another world called, I don't know, unless we are in another world in Dimoli, we cannot do this.
Has this parliament been
able... Do you know
this
is the most prestigious food remaining for any Kenyan?
But
you cannot do that.
Has this parliament been able to stop any proposal by the government so far?
Well, we have said it.
You've been in parliament for the last 1.5 years.
Yes.
Have you been able to stop any proposal by government on even amending one clause of any proposal coming from government? Successfully?
Yeah, no, not successfully. I will be lying to you.
Proposing amendments that never see the light of the day.
They never see the light of the day.
Meaning that even this, once the government decides that this is going to happen.
The only prestigious thing for any Kenyan today.
How will you
for our students.
How will you stop
But even whoever brings such a proposal, honestly, I think it is now they have decided, because they are eating dumas and guaches, they have changed their lifestyle, so they won't care about
Madam Elachi, I'm asking you this question directly. Can you guarantee Kenyans that this
No, I don't want to
change?
You see, for me, I won't play that game of guaranteeing or not.
So
I have said my feeling, which is a very sad feeling, that you cannot. It is only bread that you will find even a child on the street is having as a meal. So even putting it on the paper, I am
bread
like, it
milk,
is unfortunate for it to be on Kenyan paper. This is something we would have done even without you knowing whether there is bread or milk, if we agreed that VAT has gone high to everything, isn't it? But then now you can't start picking oh, this will have VAT. The same way we did with fuel, we should not do that.
Well, how does it make you feel as a member of the minority side in Parliament, seeing all these proposals by government?
This one of
all
bread
of them, and it's not
and
just
milk.
This
one of bread and milk.
There's been the
for
SHIF,
sure is where you start a very serious.
Now we saw the finance bill.
This would be the worst we would ever do to our country.
We saw the finance bill last year pass without amendment. The only question or the only pushback was when people went to court to challenge some of the provisions in the finance bill that had already been passed into law. Hence, the government started complaining about the judiciary. But Parliament simply passed it as it was. We've seen the affordable housing bill, which was passed in Senate, I think, earlier this week. Passed as it is. The National Assembly passed it as it is without changing a simple full stop.
Well, we did you see, Parliament of Kenya is a debating chamber.
Should we expect that the budget policy statement will pass as it is?
And I think the minority leader, Wandai, with our troops, we have done all our best. We have explained. In fact, we've reached a point we've realized sometimes it's just good to come and explain it in layman's language. And that's what now we are doing on our side. First, we question our colleagues. And we ask and we question and we explain. We say, not in politics now, because we have realized it's not about playing politics. It's about how can you understand that this is not just going to affect one side. It's affecting the whole country, even your side. Yes. So why, and anyway, you are the one who is selling. It is your region that brings milk. It is your region. I mean, why would you even do that?
It is not the first time we're seeing a majority in Parliament. Even the Jubilee enjoyed a super majority.
Yes, but at least at that time, people had you look at your constituency and you work for your constituency.
How come we do not have that kind of conscience this time around in the House?
Well, we have the conscience, a lot of conscience, a lot.
How come we're not?
For me, I have that
looking
conscience.
At Parliament collectively and not just the two sides.
I won't be in a collective bangle because I don't come. I believe these other constituents, they were sent by their people to be doing all these things. Because you can't do it if you were not sent by your people. But my people never sent me to find themselves, even their children cannot have breakfast or even dinner. Because
now the minority side is reduced to either abstaining from voting for this or walking out of the House.
In the National Assembly, we don't abstain. We stand and we tell ourselves until we finish.
You walked out of the Assembly.
We can walk out on a few times,
but
well, yes, and you can see it has gone, and we are okay now.
At the Senate this week, we saw 10 members of the minority side simply were not present in the House to vote.
Why?
They were just not present, 10 of them, meaning they had already given up before. Even the minority side, are you playing your role properly? We are there.
And it depends on, you can't play your role if you can't also catch the speaker's eye. So I always say there are many things. You might blame members of parliament. You might say what? There's a time they will decide one side has to speak 17 times. The other side maybe 2, 3, 4 times.
So do you accept that Parliament has to some extent been taken over by the executive? A huge extent.
No, that one I will say yes. We have negated our role.
It is a dysfunctional
and this is something, even when we were debating the budget policy statement, I think I said we were given an opportunity by Kenyans to ensure the issue of budget is the role of Parliament. Yes, the executive will bring their proposals. Yes, we will want a government to function, because even as we don't want a country where the government will stall. No, we are saying government has to function so that people can be able to get services. But then we come and look at some of the things and we say, and we question. And by the way, it's not that all the members, even on the other side, are really willing to see all these things happen.
But they still pass it.
But you find them now, because it is what government wants and you are in government, they just go and then afterwards, they will sit and you'll hear them lamenting and you even wonder.
Isn't that a symbolic of a dysfunctional parliament? Where people are voting just on party lines, even against their own conscience?
Why is it dysfunctional and yet the budgets will come out and function? It is functional. It's only that they have taken the issues of party so personal. Okay. And that is one thing we all of us have to come out and go back and understand, what did you promise your people? And are you doing what you promised to them? And indeed, if anything that will come to hurt your people, like now the other day when you were seeing on the whole TV, and maybe that is why you have a crisis, about fertilizer. I mean, why will somebody, and Kenyans take advantage of that. And they know the leakages that are there, and they will use those leakages now to do evil things like taking sand to be called fertilizer. Yeah. And you know, the first time I was told, not even when I saw on TV, I was told long before. And I thought, is it a joke? And somebody asked me, is this fertilizer? Does it dissolve? Because I've put it in the farm and it is just there. So I said, when we use it, the one we bought, it dissolves, so I don't know. So what people did, they knew in the rural, farmers will not even know. They are beyond, I mean, we are so smart until I don't understand.
Yet that is part of the justification for enhanced tax collection, that if we collect more money, we'll be able to subsidize fertilizer and all these things. Some other things, because the government has said so that we are in dire straits. We need more money. No. I think I need to speak about this today. That I don't think is about the more money. I think it's about how you handle the little you have. What we are now seeing is that we are unable, just the little we get. If we just go back to the economics of Mzee Kibaki the late, we can handle. And it is not about, you see, the other challenge we are facing in the country is like, as I always say, as a president, you have a good plan for Kenya. People can see it. But the team that is supposed to implement the good plan are so questionable. Some of them are like, do they even understand? I even don't know. I don't want to say they don't understand anymore because you've been in office for 2 years. For heaven's sake, you have to understand. And so we have to go back. It is a route that is so deep. Yes.
And it's not about the top here layer. Yes. It is from the person who starts preparing this document.
Madam Melachi, the justification has been that the country needs more money, which obviously is being collected right now. But when we talk about more money, and we look at some of the headlines like page 6 of the Daily Nation, which talks about the House team proposing, rather approving the creation of the position of Chief Administrative Secretary. And questioning at a time when we say we do not have money. I know you've served as a CAS position.
You've taken me to a debate that I will not debate.
A parliamentary committee has approved the creation of the position of Chief Administrative Secretary. Yes, they say it will be capped at 22, but this is an extra cost. At a time when the government is saying we're in dire straits, we do not have the money, hence we need to collect more. We cannot employ intern teachers. We cannot, hence doctors have gone on strike. Then you go and approve with the help of Parliament.
But you see, this is something that was there. It is only their own way of doing. Today,
I know you've served as a CSS for public service.
Today they would be having their 22 CSS. We would not be having this debate if they ever just followed their fast.
Is it a justified expense at this time?
Well, I don't know. I don't want to say justified or not justified. Because for me, it's not. I have said, we come here, it's because we have refused to look under. You know, you're looking at this, but you have never asked yourself, why can't we do a good audit of how government spends money? Yeah, forget about salaries of people and all these things of positions. Why can't we do a good audit of this country? And you realize how we spend money. That is the day you'll start questioning other things that we always just look at this. Go and look at so many things. When I entered government, I said one time that is the day I knew Kenya, among East Africa, is blessed with wealth. But how we do with it, what we do with it.
So we do not necessarily need the extra taxation to handle our business, do we?
Exactly. It is just how you go under and look at your revenue streams and look at how we mismanage and look at how we you know, you are talking about this. Ask yourself, in the whole government system, so you can book a ticket today, and because you're in a hurry, you go for the book those that are very damn expensive, and maybe even somebody is not going. Then you cancel, then they get whatever. I mean, we have so many mismanagement in government that has never come to any newspaper. Mm-hmm. We just walk and look at what is Mheshimiwa earning, what is this. Forget about that.
But Parliament has access to all these audit reports. Budget policy statement is a role of Parliament. Should we excuse Parliament when it comes to government wastage?
Parliament. You see, also media has to do its own investigative. Don't use Parliament. Why can't you?
I'm saying, should we excuse Parliament?
No, don't excuse Parliament. Come there and do also your audit. But we're waiting a day. One journalist will do a good investigation. Go sit down with the Auditor General, get all streams of Kenya, from the county government to top. The trillions you'll come and speak here. That is the day we'll awaken ourselves and know there is money in the country, but we misuse it. Okay. We use it in a way that is very sad, and it's not about this. It's about just every day, ask yourself every day how we are spending our revenue in terms of, let me give you an example. So today, we shall have maybe the president visiting a certain area in the country. And by the way, another one will visit, another one will visit. In all that, there's resources playing around, isn't it? Yeah. And so we have to, I'm not saying the president should, the president has to go because he's the oversighter number one of the projects he's saying he needs to see. But there's need of us to just look at all these things. There's need of us to go back on the drawing board and say, yes, we have been blessed with the resources, yes, but we are using it in the very, because you can't tell me in a country where you stand across East Africa and you have a budget of 4 trillion. And it is there, by the way. Mm-hmm. It's because there are small things we ignore. Let me give you an example of Nairobi. So Nairobi, if today I want to collect revenue in Nairobi, I will just go to my people in the markets, and I will not overtax them, just the normal, but make a system that collects that revenue. Okay. Because there are a lot of loopholes of losing it. Mm-hmm. Yeah? Transport. You know, if there is a place a country can make resource, is in the transport sector. And when you see today, at 1 hour, you are told there's a breakdown and the police have to come in and a crackdown is happening.
Brilliant ideas, I agree.
Let me now give you how you will be shocked. So how many matatus do we have in the country? Roughly more than 25 to 30,000, yeah? And so you'll come and do a crackdown. Close Nairobi, close where? Nairobi is the best. And I crack down each matatu from Kiambu Road. In 2 to 3 hours, trust me, I'll be having those good millions. Mm-hmm. Crazy millions that you can, in a few hours, in just a crackdown. That is why we can never allow the transport sector to run the way it runs in Europe. Okay. Because we know when you are in need of money,
you're destroying a whole economy.
You will just immediately.
Now, as we come to the end of this conversation, you've been on this panel before and we've had so many discussions about the headlines every day. I don't know if you've noticed, but the conversations appear to have changed completely. We're talking about the death sentence, we're talking about taxation on milk. We've not had a single mention of Ruto or Raila in our conversations this morning. We've gone almost about
which is okay, minutes. That's the best way.
And I'm asking this because there's still problems.
Yes.
What is informing this shift in conversations? Is it the expected exit of, or rather the exit of Raila Odinga as a main pushback to government policy. Now that he's out of the system, no one else is doing that job. No one else is trying to push back on government policies. No one is criticizing, no one is questioning, not parliament, not anyone. Hence, the media is now having totally different kind of discussions.
It's good to thank God, because he now tells us who normally makes us awaken ourselves. And because everyone talks about His Excellency, the Prime Minister, oh, he's this, oh, he needs to exit. He is now showing you, yeah, I have been there. I have fought for this country, for anything that I feel that goes down to Mwananchi. But nobody, and that's why God says, sometimes move. When that vacuum comes in, you realize, what? We need him. And so, for those who are saying, I can see many saying, oh, we want to take the position. Where are you?
Where is Parliament?
No, it's not about Parliament, because Parliament cannot be all
you
of
have
them.
a whole minority wing in Parliament.
No, that's why it doesn't start with Parliament. It starts from all the other leaders who have been with His Excellency, isn't it? And those leaders are there. What's their role as Baba? Not
you
exiting,
are a political leader yourself.
But yes, I have. But I'm just saying.
Are you questioning the role you play in as far as pushing back the government?
No, I'm not questioning. You see, for me, I've always said I'll push where I will, and I will appreciate where I see now Kenya is moving. You see, I have tried my best for the many years to try and just be objective. That's me. And I don't need to come and play the politics in it. Where we have gone wrong, I will accept. We have gone wrong and we have to change. And I have agreed with you, Indumili, we must change as Parliament. In the year 2024, we must change. We cannot allow again for us to sing a song when we can see this absolutely is wrong. We don't need to fight. We just need to sit down, both sides, the way Duale used to do and Badi at one point. When things are tough like this, they sit and they agree. This will be okay, this will not be okay. And they go back to the leaders and say, look, this one, no. It's a no goes on and don't bring it. You see, and how I wish Kimani Ichung'wah and Wandai can do that. The same way
they seem to be agreeing on some issues on the NADCO report, but those are not the conversations Kenyans are having.
I know.
We're talking about taxation and other issues.
That's what I'm saying. They should not, as they were meeting in this NADCO, and the same way they can now sit down and say, look, you go back to the executive, this should not even be on the headlines of any Kenyan paper. It should not. And so for me, what I want to thank God is we realize the work that His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga has done.
Okay.
And it's work that somebody else, it doesn't just come like that. By the way, he's a very unique person. And
in his absence, we have no one else to actually speak for
no one understands
Kenyans.
how he brings in that charisma of pulling and people understanding, indeed, this is wrong.
Okay.
And so we need to have Kalonzo Musyoka and others to come in and stand the way he has been standing as he prepares to look at also his bid.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of those issues that could be of great concern to many Kenyans, and I'm sure it is for you even as a legislator, is the issue of boundaries review, delimitation of boundaries. The constitutional provision of a deadline lapsed. So as we speak today, we are in defiance of the Constitution. This is not an act of Parliament. It is provided for by Article 89 of the Constitution that delimitation and review of boundaries should happen not before 8 years, but not after 12 years. The 12 years lapsed at the end of February. No one is speaking about that. Meanwhile, Parliament is trying to sidestep this issue through an amendment to an act of Parliament, which could postpone the review on delimitation of boundaries. And I'm asking, is that the right conversation we should be having? Defying the Constitution without consequence. And members of Parliament, remember there are 26 constituencies which are at risk of being scrapped because they were only protected for that period that has already lapsed. How come we are not having these conversations at this time?
Okay, two things. One, the Constitution is also not cast on stone. It is it's a live document. And we have to look at the situation we are in. And in Dimuli, the situation we are in, number one, we don't even have the Electoral Boundaries Commission to do this work. We must accept that that is the first wrong thing we did.
There are those who argue that the delay in forming IEBC was intended so that this does not happen, that it could be by design.
It can be by design or not design. Not designed by people just ignoring and not reading. You know, most of us, we don't even read. We come to realize, oh, so there was this crisis that is coming. It happens.
But it's true that also members of parliament are not necessarily keen on having the delimitation or review of boundaries happening at this time.
Well, why won't we have keen? For me, I have no issue. I mean, if you ask me how many members do I have, voters do I have in the Greater North, they deserve to have a constituency. 170,000 people.
That's more than the population quota. So it means the resources you get to share.
It's a debate that is very, the resources we are sharing with someone who is joking in Tiati, where he has decided the bandits can just hoover all over, yet he's able to get roughly 400 million on equalization fund, and then he gets 200 for his CDF, and when you walk in, you can't see.
Isn't that the conversation Kenya should be having right now? Because it's about the distribution of resources.
Yes, and we are saying, and it's a very painful, the same distribution of resources is that Kenyans, in the Constitution, why we agreed to give more revenue to the counties that we felt had been left behind, was for them to build themselves. But now if you go to Turkana and you tell me even the former governor left, it is the whole place, Turkana is a crime scene. It's what do you tell Kenyans? What will Kenyans feel? And yet they are thinking, our brothers and sisters where they are coming out and we are catching up with devolution. But you find the same whole team with other issues. And they have designed this concept of saying, we shall put ourselves on war any day as leaders. Let our people be on war so that nobody, even the Auditor General, when she wants to go and audit there, she's told, no, you'll be killed, you know. But I want to tell the Auditor General, then go with a chopper.
Who will help
and land there and look at a few things. No, you know, we have 15 years of devolution.
As you make your final comments.
15 years of devolution. It is time we have to audit without fear or favor. You have to sit and ask yourselves. You don't need to audit papers. Go and look at the infrastructure they are telling you. Oh, on our CIDP, we passed this. The money that was allocated was this. Check. In 10 years, do we have 100 billion there? So that's why I was saying the money we have in Dimoli is not the money we should be talking here. We should be asking someone, the money we are sending down, even for development, 10 years, if we have given you as a country, one county, even Mandera, even where, it's very unfair to a taxpayer, and that is why.
Who will speak for Kenyans? And that's the question.
Well, I'm saying it. Kenyans can also come out. You see, they are the voters also. You see, we blame other people.
They chose their representatives.
Exactly, and I always tell Kenyans, you can't vote, finish, and then come say you voted wrongly. How? The day you knew you had a choice of good people, you felt they were not the right people. But then now when you finish, you come and you want things to amend, yet you have returned the same person, a person who has been your MP for I don't know how many years. You have decided you'll be a governor, then you come and complain. How?
Okay.
And yet when he was MP, he had some resources. You have never seen anything he has done. How will he do this other one? As I finalize, I want to ask His Excellency, my governor, who I really respect, that I want to thank you for the issue of garbage, but we have to do it with a lot of enforcement. We just need to go to every shop. You have a law, the county assembly has given you power, 10 meters around every shop, let it be clean. Just use that and make sure Nairobi turns clean. And we have so many street families, oh my. We need to ask them where they've come from, whether it's in Kenya, what is the problem, can we take them back home? We need to do a Mandago in this town. Because you can't tell me Kisumu can be clean and Nairobi can't be clean. How? And anyway, you are Kenyan, because I have followed even another one on the expressway who decides to just eat a chocolate of Kit and then just throws it out. Until where she stopped is where I stopped. And I told her, this was yours. Whom did you expect to pick on an expressway? And she just looked, and I said, yeah, these are real Kenyans. And then you'll come and tell us tomorrow, there's a lot of garbage. You are part of the garbage.
Okay.
Yeah, so let us stop throwing things on the road or everywhere, and you're in your car. Especially when you're driving, don't do that.
Okay, and my director's just given me 3 more minutes.
Okay.
So I'm still keen on this issue of boundaries review because, fine, now the deadline has lapsed.
Yes.
It is not the first defiance, or it's not the first time we've defied the Constitution. We're still in defiance of the Constitution in as far as the two-thirds gender rule is concerned, 14 years later. So now this is the first time we've defied the delimitation and review of boundaries. No consequence.
No, there are consequences. They are.
So far none. If it continues, don't you think that when it comes to 2027, we may decide to defy the date of the election without consequence? Because we're setting a precedent, and no one seems to feel that there's something wrong we're doing.
Well, the court set a precedent in changing a date of election, so don't go there. And we changed. It depends on how the courts will
for the implementation of the transition phase to the new constitution. That was allowed, even for the delimitation of boundaries.
The moment you do that, you've set a precedent. I can use it at any given time. So that's okay. That's why I'm saying, on the boundaries, it is important for us to go to court for a good timeline. Let the courts give us, because we have been unable, the courts must give that frame properly. But we can only do it, and I have said, let's get the IEBC first. I think they tabled the NADCO report. They've tabled the bill now for IEBC. We've sort of fast-tracked it in terms of reducing the time of publication and all that. So I am hoping we can debate it very fast, and I am hoping the courts allowed the team to continue interviews and all that. So I don't know whether that is happening or not.
I think it's down to the NADCO process.
So it has gone back to NADCO, so it is us in Parliament who should agree.
But the attempt now by Parliament is to ensure or to push this boundaries review or delimitation to after the 2027 election. I
haven't seen that bill yet.
Yeah, there's a bill already in Parliament by, I think, your colleague Alice Ng'ang'a.
It will be very unfortunate, because if you have the IEBC bill, this is where you put in all these things. Now, if you bring it separately again,
it is a separate
it doesn't
amendment.
sound very, very good in terms of
given the kind of push that was there, especially in the Mount Kenya region, because it's down to the delimitation and review of boundaries.
1 shilling, 1
1 shilling, 1 man, 1. Is it a debate that members, and this was being pushed by members of Parliament, is it a debate that members from that region are keen to allow to just die until after 2027? Is that what is happening?
No, die how now? And you want 1 shilling, 1 vote of resources.
This was the opportunity to do it.
It is still an opportunity to do it. Even for Western, it's huge. It has very huge numbers. It needs more resources. It needs more constituencies.
This is down to MPs.
Like
They're
Kiambu.
not talking about it.
No, we are talking about it. Even when Mushamba brought a bill in the CDF, we had to hold on it because we said it's the same 1 shilling, 1 vote.
Why are people holding back with?
No. We felt there's already a provision. What she wanted, a small provision, as we go now through the whole process again. And we just went back and said, look, the process is coming through NADCO. Let's see if we can achieve. But I'm hoping, not just Mount Kenya, it is a conversation we must have. If indeed we cannot delaminate the 290 and bring in other constituencies, then we have to do the wards. We have to ensure because
isn't
one
that the conversation we should be having now? The deadline has already lapsed.
I know. That's why I've said it has lapsed. We have issues. The courts have to help us on a time frame. If we can't do constituencies, we have to create more wards
before 2027.
Before 2027, just to ensure. Because why would one ward in Nairobi have 60,000 people voting in a ward? Yet we have somebody else who wants to tell me has 15,000. 1 shilling, 1 vote, without fear or favor.
Do you agree that there are some forces, very influential forces, that are not keen on this conversation being had at this time?
Yes, I know. They are very, very.
So that could be the reason even for the delay in ensuring that IEBC is...
And then others feel if you come and do the delineations of constituency in some regions, you know they are going to have an upper hand, and others have always had an upper hand than others. So all that is there. All the politics is there in Dimuli, but the best we can tell ourselves, bring in the words.
Okay.
And you have to look at constituencies that have more than... you don't need to go to cut words because of equity. No.
Okay.
You have to look at where people are now.
Asante sana. Beatrice Salachi, MP Dagoretti North.
Which I know our brothers from the northern side will hate to hear that, but I'll tell them.
We could go on and on.
We have to count people because they are the ones paying revenue now. It is people paying revenue.
We could go on and on discussing issues that matter to Kenyans or should actually matter to Kenyans, and we're probably not having these discussions, but at least on the front page of the Star, they make mention of the boundaries review, and they talk about why you will not be getting a new MP come 2027 on the boundaries review. It is a story you need to read because it does and should matter to you. Straight to editorial comment this morning. Now, the continued imposition of the death sentence by courts in Kenya, despite a long-standing hiatus in actual executions, raises profound questions about the efficacy, morality, and relevance of capital punishment in modern society. Yesterday's sentencing of Joseph Irungu, also known as Jowie, to death for the 2018 murder of businesswoman Monica Kimani has revived this debate and reignited the conversation on the need for a critical re-evaluation of our approach to criminal justice and punishment. It is a paradoxical situation where individuals are condemned to death, yet the state refrains from carrying out executions, resulting in lengthy periods of uncertainty and deprivation for those sentenced. The reality for those facing the death penalty is a grim existence, marked by isolation, limited opportunities for rehabilitation, and a perpetual shadow of impending doom. It is no wonder that successive presidents have opted to commute death sentences to life imprisonment, indicating a recognition of this untenable situation. Yet, it leaves the issue unresolved. The Supreme Court in December of 2017 declared the mandatory death penalty unconstitutional, reopening debate as to what purpose the death penalty serves in the criminal justice system. The fact that the AG and the ODPP failed to come up with a detailed plan to deal with the sentence rehearings for convicts who are on death row already, as directed by the Supreme Court, is an indictment on the state agencies. Players in the criminal justice system need to urgently come up with a lasting solution to this, as it is inhumane to keep death row convicts anxious as they await their